this is almost the 36th year that I've offered this work in one form or another. And what I'll say is I'm a scientist. I'm a degreed earth scientist, a geologist. I have a strong background in the geophysics as well as in the life sciences, because I was an ocean science major before I became a geologist. So marine biology to marine geology to geology. And one of the things I learned, Cinzia, as a scientist, is that we as scientists have been conditioned to look at what happens in the world in terms of boxes that we can be comfortable studying. So we call those boxes like chemistry and geology and biology and physics. And while it's good to study those boxes, the truth is, the reality is that nature doesn't know about those boxes. We have a world, we have life. And if we are truly going to understand and become masters of our experience, we've got to cross those traditional boundaries that have separated the sciences in the past, and in many respects kept us separate from understanding our own experience in the world. I know it sounds a little nebulous. I'm just going to give an example. Let me just give an example of what I'm saying here. I remember in the late 1970s, early 1980s, as a geologist, I was watching the magnetic fields of the Earth go through very rapid shifts. They're continuing right now. The magnetic fields of our planet are shifting. And my question to my geological colleagues, I said, wow, the magnetic fields of the Earth are changing. What does that mean for us? What's it mean for humans? And they had their little geology blinders on, and they said, don't ask me. I'm a geologist. Go ask a biologist. So I asked my biology friends, I'd say, the magnetic fields of the Earth are changing. What does that mean? And they say, hell, we don't know. We're biologists. We're not taught to think in terms of the effects of Earth upon living systems. Now, this was in the 70s and 80s. It's changing. It's changing slowly, but it has a lot to do with what we're going to talk about today. So that's why I wanted to use that example, because we are, in fact, living a time of extremes. Now, I know that's not new for anyone watching us. People know, even the people that used to resist the fact that something is different now are asking what's going on. Everybody knows something's up. The question is, what's up? So I, as a scientist, I'm a systems thinker, first of all. And what that means is I tend to look at the big picture first, the big picture. I mean, I like to go out into the cosmos and see how all these cosmic systems are working. Then I like to leave that behind and go into the nano instant of right now and what's happening in my life and your life and my community's life and how it's being influenced by what's happening in the cosmos. I want to talk about cycles of time. What we now know as scientists is that we are living a rare convergence. We in the world right now, we are living a rare convergence of multiple nested cycles, natural rhythms that change the way that we think, they change the way that we live. And the three primary rhythms that are driving the changes in the world right now, I'm going to mention them briefly, and then I'll tell you where you can see more information about this at no charge. But the first one, Rob, if we could bring up the slide number 2, please, I appreciate it. The first of these is climate. Now, we all know that climate is changing. As a geologist, I want to be very clear on where I am personally on this. Climate change is a fact. That's the whole point. It is a fact, and we need to change the way we think and live so that the climate change has less of an impact on our lives. It's clinging to an old way of thinking and living in the presence of a cycle that no longer supports that way of thinking and living. That's where the problem comes from. That's where the suffering comes from. So what I'd like for you to see on the screen right now, these are charts taken from the ice cores, and these particular ice cores were in Antarctica. Some of you are familiar with ice cores, some are not. The gift of an ice core is that when scientists drill down through hundreds and thousands of layers of ice that has been deposited year after year after year. Each layer of ice contains information about what was happening to Earth on that year. So we can learn about things like how strong the sun was, how warm the temperatures were, how cool the temperatures were, how high the sea level was, what the magnetic fields of the Earth were doing, all of that and more we can learn from the ice cores. So what you're looking at on the screen are two primary ice cores. On top is blue, and the one below that is green. The one on blue, it's called the EPICA ice core. The one below is called Vostok, very famous locations in Antarctica. So what I'd like to call your attention to, on the left-hand side of the screen is present day. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that the data goes back over 400,000 years before today. It's called BP, before present. So we're looking at a continuous record of the warming and the cooling. This is what we're seeing on these ice cores for over 400,000 years. And what you see is there is obviously a rhythm of warming and cooling, warming and cooling. It's been happening for a long time. Right at the 200,000 year mark, you also see a blue vertical line. That line I put there because this is when anatomically modern humans emerged on Earth. We mysteriously appeared on Earth. I've written books about it. We do workshops about our origin and what the DNA science is telling us. But the point is that we appeared 200,000 years ago, and these cycles were happening at least 200,000 years before humans appeared on Earth. What that tells us is that humans are not the cause of climate change. I know that is an unpopular message in some circles. It is also based upon the evidence. This is what the evidence shows. Humans did not cause the climate change. Humans have definitely contributed to the climate change. Since we didn't cause it, it's very unlikely that we can stop it. And for that reason, it makes tremendous sense to adapt to it. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. So where are we right now? If you look to the left, there's a blue arrow that says 2020. We are right there where that arrow is pointing. We are in what the chart says should be a warming cycle. And according to the rhythms, we should be in a warming cycle. If you look at the warming in the past, what we're experiencing now is nothing compared to what was happening in the past. When you look at the temperatures, let's see, in the 100,000, a little over 100,000 years ago, you can see it was much warmer than it is right now. It's what happens after the warming. Typically, that's the problem. It's the cooling, and we are now in a cooling phase. A lot of controversy about this. I'm going to talk about it in just a moment. So I want you to see that this in of itself would change the way we think and live, because when the climate changes, it changes the weather. And when the weather changes, it changes when it's hot, when it's cold, when the seasons begin, when the seasons end, when it rains, when it snows. That determines when we grow our food, how we grow our food. It determines where people live and how people live as populations migrate, all being directed through this climate cycle. So as a geologist, I could spend our whole 90 minutes talking, and I would love to. So I want you to know everything I'm going to say right now. If you go, don't do it now, but when you get a chance, go to YouTube. The Gaia organization, the Gaia Film Organization, I've done a series with them called Missing Links. Episode 1 of season 1 at absolutely no charge is available on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, Gregg Braden, Missing Links Season 1, and you will see more information about what I'm talking about right now and some things I can't show you right now. So that you can have more of that information. If this were all that were happening, it would be a big deal. It's not. Can we have the third slide, please? The next slide. We are also living the convergence of an economic cycle. Those of you who studied economy know of a man named Kondratiev. This is a Kondratiev cycle, and what you can see on your screen is that he broke economic cycles down into seasons according to nature. I love this. So there's a spring and a fall and a winter and a summer in terms of economic cycles. Each season has its characteristics where some things hold value and some things lose value, where interest rates climb or interest rates decline, where inflation is high or inflation is low. We now are in the spring of a new economic cycle. If you look at the lower left-hand part of your screen, you can see this. It is a very unsettling time because assets that we used to think held value are losing their value. Paper assets, like stocks in companies, for example, and tangible assets like land, like water, like food, like metals. These are the things that begin to hold their value better in the spring of an economic cycle. Also, in that YouTube video, I talk about this, so you can see more about that. So here's the point. Not only are we living the climate change that's happening, now an economic change is happening at the same time, and both of these are linked. Rob, could we please have the next slide up, please? They are linked to a cycle that a lot of people have never heard about. It is called the conflict cycle. Now, when I was speaking at the United Nations with my dear friend, my spiritual brother, my colleague, Dr. Bruce Lipton, we were invited to speak at the UN together as a team. And we shared the science that shows that cooperation is the fundamental rule of nature, not competition. And when we talked about conflict cycles, they were surprised because the thinking is that conflict just happens when it happens. There is a correlation between conflict and natural rhythms and natural cycles. I'm going to just do it at a very high level. The heart and the brain, human heart and human brain, are the strongest biomagnetic generators in the human body. The heart is much stronger than the brain, all right? When the magnetic fields of our Earth are in flux, they influence the magnetic fields of the heart. And the net effect is that when the magnetic fields are strong, we are more cooperative, less aggressive, more willing to work together to solve our problems. When the magnetic fields are weak, it's the opposite of all that. We are vulnerable to conflict. What you see in this chart is if you look at the tops and the bottoms of these rhythms, they are directly linked to the solar cycles of our sun, where the magnetic fields ebb and flow, influencing the magnetic fields of the Earth that ebb and flow, influencing human consciousness and our willingness to either cooperate or solve our problems through conflict. And you're seeing this very clearly in this particular rhythm. Yeah, I could do other wars and you could see the same thing. Now, I want to be very clear. We are not slaves to this cycle. We always have choice. We can always choose. And the beauty of what you're seeing is not only are we vulnerable to conflict, but if you look at this closely, you will see that we are now in the greatest opportunity for peace that we will have or have had for a very long time, because the beginnings and the endings of the great wars in the past happened at the tops and the bottoms of those cycles. Where are we right now? If you look at that blue arrow, right there is the year 2020 on the top of that red hump that you're seeing right there. 2020 is a period of the lowest magnetic fields magnetic measurements for our planet. It is coinciding with the solar cycles. The sun is right now. We're at the end of solar cycle 24. We've yet begun solar cycle 25. Activity is little or... I know that my connection was just dragging, so I paused just for a moment. What it means is that the magnetic fields on the sun are either nil or they're very, very weak. That is influencing what's happening here on our planet. And there are a lot of scientific correlations between solar cycles and human coherence, social coherence, okay? So I want to be very clear about this. We are not slaves. We are now at a place, if you know where you are in the cycle, it is the opportunity to become a good listener, to extend the olive branch of peace, to give another the benefit of the doubt. This is true between nations. It's true between members of our society. It's true between anyone experiencing conflict. It's true with members of your own family, your husbands, your wives, your partners, your spouse, your kids, your siblings, your co-workers. Humans are influenced by these fields. So I know I'm speaking quickly because I want to get to the resilience of what we're talking about here, but I'm laying the foundation. This is no ordinary time in the history of our planet. Each of these cycles in and of themselves could create tremendous change. All three of them are converging right now, and you and I are witness to what is happening that we have not seen over 5,000 years of recorded human history. So if you're wondering what's happening, why do things seem so different now? This is the underlying cause at a high level. We are experiencing the result of three natural rhythms that are converging in a way that we've never seen, again, in 5,000 years, creating the chaos. And the chaos is what happens when you try to think and live in ways that do not reflect what the cycles are presenting in your life. And once you begin to see this, it makes perfect sense of what we need to do next. Our science has conditioned us to believe that we're separate from these influences and these effects. We document them, we watch them through telescopes, and we say, oh, isn't that interesting? What they're now beginning to understand is that we cannot separate our everyday experience from what's happening in the environment around us. So now we're talking about the physical environment. The environment, the magnetic fields primarily of the sun influencing the earth, and that in turn influencing through the neurons of the human heart, the way that we feel about ourselves. And what it does is it becomes very unsettling because old ideas and belief systems that worked in the system that we had before, because that system no longer exists, those ideas and beliefs are looking for new equilibrium. They're looking for a new harmony. Doesn't mean they're right, wrong, good, or bad. I'm not judging it here. It means that we are in the process of not seeking balance. It's not balance that we want, it's harmony. I'm gonna make this distinction because nature doesn't like balance. In balance, nothing happens. If something is in perfect balance, nothing is happening. That's boring. Nature abhors balance. Nature wants harmony. So I live in a rural area, and our population of coyotes to rabbits is never in balance, but it always is in harmony. As more rabbits come available in a given season, all of a sudden we see more coyotes to keep that population in check. So nature's looking for harmony. You and I and all of my family viewing this, we are all seeking harmony in our lives in the presence of a system that is inharmonious right now because it's going through this change. This is the external physical environment. And this is the first thing that I want to talk to you about when it comes to resilience. And then we're going to move very quickly to the internal environment and finding resilience from our inner environment. This is what's so important. And I'm just going to look right in the camera to my global brothers and sisters, to my global family. I love every one of you. I love you for living in this time, for all that you're doing to be the best version of yourselves, to create the best version of the world that's possible. And we're all in this together. That's why I wanted to share this today. So I'm going to begin a conversation that has been uncomfortable in the past when I've offered it. And there's a reason for that. When you know that the system is changing and you do not know where the system is going, it makes sense to be prepared. There is, in psychology, there is a phenomenon that is called normalcy bias. Some of you are familiar with this. Normalcy bias is where we as individuals have a tendency to average out all of the big changes in life. It's hard for us to embrace those changes. And when the changes are so big that they appear frightening, it's hard for us. So we tend to discount them. And because of that, we try to live our lives as if those changes are not happening. There are all kinds of examples in history of normalcy bias. When communities on a coastal town know that a massive hurricane is coming their way, all right? And there are people that will discount that. They'll say, we've written it out before, we're gonna write it out again, even though the National Weather Service is telling them this one's different. This one is different. It's stronger, it's faster, the ocean currents are warmer. And normalcy bias will say, it's not going to be that big a deal. And those are the people who have been hurt or been killed. We saw this happen in Katrina, for example. This was a very sad example. So the normalcy bias in the past, I'm going to talk about resilience. Resilience comes on different levels. It means different things to different people. Resilience happens in our physical environment. That's one form of resilience I'm going to talk to you about right now. It happens in our inner environment, that is mental, psychological, emotional, spiritual, and physiological. And I'm going to talk to you about that next. I'm going to do the physical environment quickly because there's so many other resources. I don't want to use our time to do this. But what I want to say is this: you've seen from this graph, you've seen from the chart, systems are converging. It makes sense to expect the unexpected. It makes sense to embrace the fact that this is not the ordinary time. This is no ordinary time in human history. It makes sense to expect extremes. And if we allow that deep truth to be present in our lives, it makes sense to prepare for those extremes, because the extremes are only a problem when we're not prepared. The big storms, the ice storms that happened every year in the American Northeast and in New England, they break power lines, people are without power. They close roads. Trucks can't get through to deliver food to major metropolitan areas, sometimes for weeks at a time. Medical services aren't available. And people act surprised. And what we hear from some of the scientists who are dealing with this, they say, well, this is a storm that will only happen once every 50 years, so don't worry about it. And the next year, the same storm happens again. And the next year again, you get 3 50-year storms within the period of 3 years. This has happened in the American desert Southwest. We had a 100-year rain a couple of summers ago here in the high desert of northern New Mexico. It washed out roads, it washed out riverbeds. I mean, it was a mess. They said, don't worry, it's a 100-year storm. It won't happen again for another 100 years. The next year, the same thing happened. It makes sense to expect the unexpected. So when we talk about resilience, physical resilience, it makes sense to prepare. And when you're prepared, you are less stressed. And the last thing you want is to be stressed in a time of extremes, because the stress is what causes a drop in the immune response. You are less healthy when you are stressed in these extremes. So for that reason, I'm having this conversation with you. We've not seen the last shutdown from the last pandemic. If you're following the news in the last couple of days, we probably haven't seen the last pandemic. There's a flu that is emerging from Asia. Whether you believe in that or not, whatever the source is, whatever that means to you, the fact is that we are living these experiences, and we probably haven't seen the last of them. As a scientist, I can tell you we have not seen the last extreme snowstorm. We haven't seen the last bad hurricane. We have not seen the last big rainfall. And for all of these reasons, it makes sense to be prepared in your home so that you're not caught off guard, so that you can be responsible for yourself and for your family. So what I want to say to you right now, to make this very easy, everyone has a different level of tolerance when it comes to what you can and can't do without. In times of extremes, sometimes we don't have food, sometimes we don't have electricity, sometimes we don't have medical supplies, sometimes we don't have water. And it's up to you, you and your family. You have to make a determination. What is your tolerance for what you can and cannot live without? But what I've done, and just take a note, and we'll put this in the chat on Facebook. If you go to my website, there is a tab that is called Truth and Fiction. There's a little tab called Truth and Fiction. And if you click on that, additional resources is a button that comes up, and resource number 12 and 13 I've put up there for you today, and it's yours. What number 12 is a list of reliable sources for the kinds of things we're talking about. If you want backup solar electricity in your house inexpensively, I've got some references. More expensively, I've got other references. If you want food that can be stored for long periods of time, that is healthy food. The last thing you want is to eat bad food in a time of extremes. That's when you need your strength. These are vegetarian. Typically, you can add meat products if you would like. They'll stay on the shelf 25 years. Very easy. If you don't want to go out and build your own, it's a one-stop shop, very reasonable. I've given you that resource as well. Water storage, I've given you a way to these very cool 13-gallon blue bricks is what they're called, that are stackable, where you can store water in times of need. And it's one of the most vital resources that you'll ever have. Number 13 on that list, if you click on that, it's a very cool little food calculator where I've itemized the kinds of food that you can probably use. And I think it's for a family of four for 30 days. You can adjust it for whatever you need. And you put down what you have and it'll tell you what you need. And then you've got a shopping list so you know what to do. So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but what I want to say is physical resilience is based upon a principle that is called the principle of spare capacity. This is a fundamental principle in any kind of resilience. So for your physical environment, the first principle of resilience is spare capacity. And when you're talking about your physical environment, those are all the necessities: electricity, food, water, medicine. There's a place to get medical kits on that list as well. So I've been criticized for this because people say, Greg, you're fear-based. From my perspective, I am a realist. I'm an optimist and I'm also a realist. I'm optimistic. We're all going to get through this and we're going to have a better world because of it. But we are the generation living it. That's my optimism. My realism says, hey, when the environment changes, it makes sense to do what we need to do so that we are honoring what the environment is showing us. This is a kind of resilience, and I want to talk to you about this, and we're going to go very quickly into the inner resilience. And Chensi, I know I'm going longer than we wanted here, but I want to say this to our community. When we talk about resilience, the old way of thinking about resilience, traditional resilience is what it's called, is where we live our lives and then something happens that knocks us for a loop. A loss, the end of a relationship, an earthquake, a storm. And traditional resilience is our ability to bounce back from being knocked back, all right? It's the ability to bounce back, to find some level of normalcy, all right? There's another kind of resilience. And when we begin talking about this inner resilience, I know that part of what I'm doing here, I do have a course. It's a 6-module course. It is based upon the new principle of resilience. It's called adaptive resilience, which is different than traditional resilience. Adaptive resilience is where you live your life and you think and you build the parameters to honestly reflect what it is that's happening in the world. So you do this all the time automatically. You do it intuitively. Perfect example, if the weatherman says it's going to storm today, you might take a raincoat. That is adaptive resilience. It's not out of fear. It's just saying, hey, there's a chance of rain. I don't have to get wet if I don't want to. Adaptive resilience is where you make the changes that honestly and truthfully reflect the reality that you find yourself in. We are living a time of extremes. I just have to say that to you. It's not the time that we normally would expect. It is a brief period of extremes. The climate is going to continue to change. It's going to cool. The economic changes are happening. We're now moving into this spring where tangible assets and commodities are gaining in value, where other things are losing value. The conflict cycle is happening where we have the greatest opportunity for peace, as well as we are being most vulnerable to conflict. You're seeing that happen right now. So all of these things are happening simultaneously. Adaptive resilience is where you are prepared. And from my perspective, I don't see that as fear. I see it as a responsibility to myself, to my loved ones, my family, and as my global family. That's why I'm sharing this with you in the way that I am now. So that's the physical environment. Just a quick review, we're talking about resilience. We're talking about external environmental resilience, and I've given you some resources. I've shared with you what's causing the extremes, and from that you can see that we're in this. It's not something that's going to go away probably within our lifetimes. We are living the emergence of whatever this new normal is. To the degree that we can adapt to this normal, adaptive resilience, to that degree, life becomes much easier. Now, I want you to think about this, because there are a lot of people, if any of you are even watching mainstream news any longer, most people have stopped for good reason. But what so many people are doing is they're viewing this time of extremes as a little speed bump in the road of life. And they're saying all we have to do is get over this speed bump and we're back on the main road. and everything is cool. We can't go back to a world that no longer exists. And that is where the normalcy bias comes in. So we're in the change. We're not going to go back to a time where there was no change. So we might as well learn to thrive. And this is it. We don't want to just survive. We want to thrive. We want to be the healthiest, most prosperous, the happiest beings that we can be. And that's all possible if we adapt to what the world is showing us, rather than trying to live what we're comfortable with in a world that no longer supports that. Such a powerful concept. So when we talk about now personal resilience covers a lot of ground. It's more than I can do justice to in this quick 90-minute program. And for that reason, it's no secret, I have a course that I've developed. It's a 6-module course. Each module is devoted to one particular topic, and I'm going to go through those in just a moment. But it is all based upon adaptive resilience. This is from the Stockholm Resilience Institute. They are the pioneers in developing principles of adaptive resilience. So when it comes to personal resilience, what does that mean? Well, you know, and I know that we are multidimensional beings. We have many dimensions, and I don't mean higher dimensions you can't see. We have a physical dimension that needs to find resilience. We have an emotional dimension. We have a mental dimension. We have a spiritual dimension. We have a biophysical dimension. And all of those need to find their own kinds of resilience so that we in our entirety can be resilient from within to the changes that we're seeing in our outer world. So the physical resilience gives us what we need to live our lives and be at our best. And that's what I've just shared with you. The inner resilience is what this course is all about. It is dedicated in 6 modules to the psychophysical body and how to become resilient. In that body, the new discoveries of biology, of cell biology, new discoveries of stem cells. We're going to go through the whole course with you here in just a moment. The mental, the psychological, the emotional, and the physical resilience that it takes to find our new harmony. Remember, we're not looking for balance, we're looking for harmony in the context of the world that we find ourselves in now. Now, what I know is a lot of people are asking me about this course. That's why I wanted to combine that with everything else I'm talking about here. Some of you have already signed up for the course. Some of you will never sign up for the course, and I'll never see you again. And I want you to have something right now that you can use right now that will help you whether you take this course or not. We are all experiencing the stress of unresolved fear. We're being given reasons to fear 24/7 in the news cycles, friends, Facebook, if you're watching Twitter, if you're watching Instagram, a lot of you have stopped. One person says one thing, another person says something else that's completely counter, and you feel like you're ripped in a million directions. What's true? What's not? Well, how do you know what's true and how do you know what's not? All of that creates stress. And the stress that we are experiencing actually depletes our immune system of all times, of all the times to want a strong, healthy, powerful immune system. I can't think of a better time to have it than right now. And in the presence of the stress that we are undergoing, some of it is conscious, some of it's subconscious. People are stressed in ways they don't know, and their immune system has taken a hit. Now, what I want to say to you just right off the bat about COVID-19 or the H1N1 that we are now being told is coming from Southeast Asia. It will be making its rounds again this year, and another round of flu, or any contagion that's out there. What I want to say to you is this. We are made for times just like this. Our bodies know what to do with the contagion. We have been here, as you saw, 200,000 years. And for 200,000 years, our bodies have known what to do with these contagions because they are wired to thrive within the presence of these contagions. But there's a catch, and here's the catch. The catch is you must love yourself enough, and I mean this, You must love yourself enough to give your body what it needs to be at its best so that it can do what it knows how to do in times like this. What does that mean? It means all the things you already know, but maybe have taken for granted in the past. It means you've got, when you put food into your body, don't just fill the space. Give your body the highest forms of life-affirming nutrition that you know is possible in the moment that it's available, whatever that is in the moment. Sometimes it's not always, if you're traveling 30,000 feet above the surface of the earth, sometimes a bag of nuts is the highest form of nutrition that I have, and I'm okay with that because I know that the next opportunity I have to honor my body with life-affirming nutrition, I will give my body exactly that. My body knows that, all right? So honor yourself with life-affirming nutrition. Movement, exercise is so important. It stimulates the immune system as well as the hormones that help you to keep from becoming depressed.